Guys, I'm back. I'm back. We're back to the WOYS Live Hour today. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? If you're in the chats, if you're in the comments here, if you're joining me live today, hit the comments, say hello, so I know who's watching. It's been a crazy week, guys. It's been a crazy week. We had another floor crossing from the conservatives to the liberals, leaving the liberals one seat away from majority. Crazy, crazy. And this is the latest in actions by the new prime minister in Carney that are his actions have effectively reshaped, or his actions are currently reshaping the Liberal Party of Canada. Hello, hello, ladies. Hello, welcome to the show today. As you join the show, just say hello to me. Say hello in the comments, and once I have like a good few people, maybe we can get started on what we're here to talk about today. But how's your week going? How was your week this week? I bet you had a better week than Pierre Polyev. I bet most people had better week than Pierre Polyev this week. It was kind of a shit week for, for Pierre Polyev. You guys get in the comments as you get in. Get in the comments. Say hello to me in the comments. Welcome to WOYS Live Hour today. Welcome to the Live Hour today. Get in the comments. Say hello. Say hello. So, here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the liberals are clearly, you know, their identity is fundamentally being changed at the moment by Mark Carney. And the question for you guys is, will the liberals regret this movement towards the right? Towards obviously, if you agree, and I think we can all agree that we would say the Liberal Party under McCartney. Oh, okay. Maple Boy says you can't hear me much. Okay, let's see if we can fix that. Do you hear me better now? If you can hear me better, Maple Boy, let me know. Do you hear me better? I turned myself up. So I need someone to confirm that they can hear me. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up or something. Anybody in the comments? Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, okay. Levi says you say you can hear me. Good, good. If you can't hear me clearly, just let me know. I'll try and turn up the volume somewhere. Make sure that everybody can hear me. Okay. So we can all. Oh, Maple Boy says pretty much the same. Okay, that is very very weird. Okay, I'm not sure what I can do here. Um, anyways, let's move on with the show. Hopefully, it sounds that seems like the best I can do for now. Anyway, let's move on with the show. If we assume right now, and I'm going to talk louder so that just to make sure that everybody can hear me as best as possible. We can all assume right now that the Liberal Party, that, oh, Redmond says he can hear me. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so if we assume that the Liberal Party of Canada is effectively a center, a lot of people say center right. I would say mostly more center left, I would say. But where, let's start there actually. Where would you categorize the current iteration of the Liberal Party of under Mark Carney? Would you categorize them as center right, center left, still left? You know, I don't think anybody would say that the current iteration of the Liberal Party is as left as Trudeau. I wouldn't say that, but I'm curious what you guys think. Where would you put the current Liberal Party of Canada on the in the spectrum of political ideas? You guys get in the comments. Let me know, because that's where we're going to start today. Because, as I said off the jump, McCartney is effectively changing the identity of the Liberal Party from certainly from what Justin Trudeau had them looking like. The Liberal Party is looking sort of different these days, right? And we can all agree to that. So I personally, and I want you guys to make up your minds. That's why I gave you a few minutes there. Maple Boy says that doesn't matter because Pierre is not up to the job, and that is my opinion. The whole point of this is not to say that whether Pierre is up to the job or not, but you make a good point in the sense that in the, I mean, I don't know, some of you, if you live in British Columbia, you've probably seen that the, okay, if you guys are not familiar with British Columbia politics, I'm in British Columbia, and we have a leader, premier in the NDP premier, David Eby right now, who is effectively unseatable as the premier just because the opposition is incapable of getting themselves together. You might have heard that the leader of the Conservative Party, the BC Conservatives, just got kicked out. So now they have to go in search of a new leader, right? That is an example of a situation where a leader of a party makes it more difficult for such a party to win an election where they really, really should be in the conservative, the BC Conservatives realistically should have won the last election, but they somehow, like the federal Conservatives, managed to fumble the election. And Maple Boy says that Pierre Polyev keeps repeating the same things every day. Well, in a sense, you're right, but it also caters to. You have to realize how Pierre Polyev formed the base that he has now. How did Pierre Polyev form his base? Pierre Polyev formed his base by fanning the populists' outrage against status quo, against Justin Trudeau, right? And now, that message of populism only has it appeals to a certain uh group of people that maybe are fundamentally, you know never ever going to he hasn't lost that base. Abby says hi Abby, welcome to the show. That base is still very much loyal to Pierre Polyev. The problem Pierre Polyev has is there's a very, very saturated middle, common sense people in that moderate position, who that message was never going to be sustainable for, right? Now you have me talking about Pierre Polyev. Very soon we're going to get back to the liberals. I want to see your answers in the comments. Where would you put the Liberal Party, the current Liberal Party of Canada, where would you put them on the spectrum, on the political spectrum? So the problem, as I was saying, with Pierre Polyev is that Pierre Polyev has a message that is only really going to sell with a small group of people, and those people are still loyal to him. But to win the greater election in this country, he needs to appeal to those moderates in the middle. And the problem with harping on the message that he has so far, Brookfield, what's the other one that he says so much? Industrial carbon tax and those kinds of things, is that, well, there's only there's a much smaller audience for those kinds of messages. Now, if we Pierre Poilievre's options now are very limited. And I think I've been as open about this as you've been, Maple Boy, in saying that I don't think there's the strategic backing behind Pierre Poilievre enough for him to ever be able to defeat Mark Carney. At every single turn, the Poilievre Conservatives have continued to be out strategized. They've been outboxed at every turn, right? And so for me, that is why I don't think that he is the right man to defeat Mark Carney. Now, his only hope is to lay and pray. And I'll explain that a bit more. I say lay and pray in the sense that he has to wait for a significant mock-up of epic proportions, even more than whatever you perceive Mark Carney has done now. He has to wait for a significant mock-up by Mark Carney, and then his populist message will start to hit home again. Now, the problem he has is that not enough people believe in the solutions that he's preferring. Hence, the reason he lost the election. If his solutions were as relatable or as acceptable to people, he would be prime minister right now. The problem he has is that Now Makani has shifted to a position where he is effectively try executing some of the same ideas, but he is effectively doing it in a way that it's almost like telling you the same thing but telling you with a softer tone. And so people for some reason are not as on guard. They are more willing to understand what Marconi is doing as against when it the same, even if the same ideas are coming from Pierre Poliev for some reason. Anyways, I want to get back to your comments. Maple Boy says, I know it sounds conservative, but Carney is doing a great job so far. Based on what? Maple Boy, I want you to come back to the comments and tell me, what has Marconi done that comes to you as a great job? I want you to think about that and tell me that in the comments. What has Makani actually delivered? That's what I want to see in the comments next. This is not an attack on you. As I said, this channel we welcome everybody, whether you're conservative or you're liberal. We like to have discussions with ourselves, right? I want us to be honest with ourselves. So you have given. It's not a hot take. A lot of people believe Makani is doing a great job, but I want you to articulate that for me. What has Makani actually done? I want to see that in the comments. Okay, I'll read your other comment here, Maple Boy. Maple Boy says what Carney is trying to reshape the market so we are not dependent on the United States. Yes. Okay. Yes. Carney is trying to reshape fundamentally our trade, right? And so we're not as dependent on the United States. I can agree with that. He is trying is not the same thing as he is achieving. In terms of, yeah, we've heard announcements like, oh, the United Arab Emirates is going to invest a lot more. Now, if you can come to me with evidence like, okay, you know what? We heard recently that Canada's exports outside the United States grew last month for the first time in a long time. That is news. That happened. We're starting to see signs there that things are actually turning around for better under Makani. Yes. Well, at the same time, we still have this little issue of the trade war or finding a trade deal with the United States that hasn't been addressed, and that is going to get a little bit more complicated next year. I mean, you hear Donald Trump mulling over, dropping tariffs on more tariffs on even potash coming from Canada. Anyways, let's. Libby's has dropped a comment, and I don't want to miss out on your comment here. Libby says PP is known by a message. Even if he changes it, it won't work. The conservatives need a new leader, someone that can help their narrative. And that has been my position for about a month or so now. I think the best thing for the liberals is for Pierre Poilievre to remain the conservative leader. His one-on-one going up against McCartney is so far has been favorable to McCartney. So if and what you see when you look at the polls is that effectively the liberals and the conservatives are not that far away in terms of how they're polling. The problem for the conservatives is when you go and ask people who their favorite person is or who their preferred person is to be prime minister, they hardly not as they by about 20 to 25 points, maybe even more, Marconi emerges as people's preferred prime minister. That is where the problem lies. And that points to the fact that the leader of the Conservative Party is really the problem. And you start to see that even more entrenched, that idea even more entrenched as you see these floor crossings from the conservatives to the liberals. Right? There's a message there. So Maple Boy says, no, that's okay, don't worry about it. I'm not okay. I do wanna okay, so Lebi says Carney hasn't produced any results. He hasn't been able to replace the United States hemorrhage with a new partner country. That is an unfair characterization, Libis. I would say that's an unfair characterization. These things take time. Okay, these things take time. We're talking about the United States representing, I think today we're looking at roughly 70 to 80% of our trade is with the United States. You don't just You don't just change that. You don't just replace that overnight. That takes time. Okay? And the signs, as I said, with the fact that we're seeing more exports outside the United States, even to the United States for that matter, we're seeing even we're still seeing exports to the United States, but we're seeing increased exports to places, other places as well. Right? These things take time. Now, has it has it been slower than I would like? Yeah. I mean, but again, you look at things like unemployment is coming down bit by bit. You might look at the jobs report and have some optimism there. So yes, are we where we need to be? No. Does he need to show me more for me to actually be convinced by the plan? Yes, of course, right? Of course. But to say that he hasn't achieved anything, I think that is an unfair characterization, in my opinion. If we're being fair here, um, Maple Boy says they have two long-term investments of $70 billion with the UAE and India. Yes, and that is right. And to be fair, some one of the things I respect the most about you might not like McCartney, but there is a certain pragmatism, I would say, to the way he's leading this country at the moment, in my opinion. So, whereas, a person like Justin Trudeau would stick to this, we almost, as a country, like to virtue signal a little bit. We look at countries like the United Arab Emirates, and we're like, oh, the United Arab Emirates is doing this and this in Africa. Very bad stuff. India may or may not have you know done stuff to a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Well, unfortunately, these are these are the places where the investments are. India represents one of the biggest economies in the world. You know, what do you do, right? Do we sit on our horses and virtue signal our way into poverty, or do we make deals where we can and and move on? That is fundamentally the fact that Makani, where Justin Trudeau chose not to make these deals, Makani is making these deals for the benefit of Canadians. I can respect that. I'm lagging behind on your comments. I want to catch up on your comments. Maple Boy says from China, I think a $243 billion investment from Toronto. Do you mean China is investing $243 billion in Toronto? Is that what you're saying? Yes, and you're right to say that it is a long term plan. Fox Club, my guy, you're back. Fox, it has been a minute, Fox Club. Welcome to the show. Fox Club is one of our OG live commenters. He's always in the comments. Welcome back from your hiatus. Lebi says it is not unfair. He said he can handle Trump. He should have by now. But since he hasn't, he should have replaced that partnership. He was elected as an economist, yet it sucks. I think that expectation, if anybody had that expectation that you would replace the deal we had with the United States or the trade that we have with the United States overnight, I think that would have been naive from people, and I know, and I know that is the talking point from the party of conservatives that he has to. Why hasn't he delivered this now? I don't think that expectation is based in reality at all. I would say that. I would say that. Okay, so we're going off topic, and we've done enough of that, and I don't want this show to go longer than the allotted hour that we have for the show. So I'll get back to what we were initially supposed to talk about. I'll read all your Actually, I should read all your comments. Mark Anderson says, "Mr. Wolf, I suggest you keep your day job." There's always one, isn't there? There's always one. Uh, Okay, so Mark Anderson says, you have no coherent agenda for this discussion other than replying to Maple Boy. I asked a question, and the purpose of the live show, Mark Anderson, is for us to have a discussion, right? So I asked the question earlier in the show. My question from the start was, where would you put the Liberal Party, the current iteration of the Liberal Party under Carney on the political spectrum? Do you categorize them as center right, center left, right, left? You know, that was the initial question I asked you guys. Now, people decided that they wanted to talk about something else. So I was responding to talking to people's comments. See, the way the live show works, Mark Anderson, is that I let you guys drive the show. Wherever you want to go with the discussion, I follow you. Okay? And sometimes when I see we're going too far in the wrong direction, then I bring us back. That is how this works. If I was gonna just talk on based on what I want to say, I would just make a video. Okay? So the live show is about you guys. It's about where you want to go with the discussion. So if you guys want me to proceed with what I said I wanted to talk about, which was whether the liberals will regret becoming conservative-lite under McCartney. That is fundamentally where we started. So let's go back there so that Mike Anderson is happy. Okay, I apologize, Mike Anderson, for going off topic. Thank you for bringing us back. Um, and don't worry, I do still have my day job. Thankfully, this is a fun little pastime that I have. It's okay. Um, yes, Mabel boy, you've offended your fellow commenters here. Why are you like that? Okay, Lebi says an improvement will be seen today if he can play politics well with other countries, the way he can play Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives so well. Fox Club said, I'm happy I didn't miss you tonight. I'm glad you're on the show tonight. Okay, so Lebi says no one has the expectation that McCartney was what he. Okay, all right. So guess what? I would I would I would categorize McCartney right now as a center right. That's where I would put McCartney on the spectrum. You guys can feel free to agree or disagree with that characterization of the Liberal Party. And Fox Club is jumping in here. Fox Club says, "I'm not sure where the current Liberal Party is. I want Carney to do well, but I'm still not sure I fully trust him." And you shouldn't trust. I, I shouldn't generalize like this, but you shouldn't trust a politician without evidence without evidence is my point, right? So if you say you don't trust Carney, that is a good position to start from. That is a good position to start from. Okay? And from there, we can start to build that trust, when he starts to deliver on the things that we were promised as citizens on the campaign trail. We're going to build this country, we're going to build big things, we're going to build for generations. When he starts to deliver on those things, then you can trust him more. Don't Trust is earned. It is earned. And I would like to see McCartney earn that trust. Now, I have chosen to categorize the current iteration of the Liberal Party as center right. Okay? Let's start working from there. Now, my question for you guys is, will the Liberal Party, going from under Justin Trudeau, where they were effectively at best center left, at worst far left at times, and the moments when Justin Trudeau became far left was, you can think of the moments where, like, he was fighting elections based on culture wars sometimes, you know, um, you know, in those moments you can effectively say that Justin Trudeau maybe was center left to far left, right? Now, that worked very well for the Liberals over the 9, 10 odd years that Justin Trudeau was the prime minister. It won him one majority, won him two minority governments. That worked well enough. Now, Justin Trudeau made the, whether it was based on conscience or whether it was an executive decision based on the idea that he knew he could win that type of election, doesn't matter. Okay? Now, McCartney is effectively reshaping the Liberal Party back to a different idea. You can, if you close your eyes and you didn't have the liberal label slapped on the current Liberal Party, you would think it was a what it was the progressive conservatives you were talking about here with some of the policies that McCartney has championed. That is a fair characterization, right? So my thing here is eventually, um, is the plan here for going forward in elections going forward for the liberals to displace the conservatives. There are certainly, as I said, a lot of votes in that middle, that somewhere that moderate part of the spectrum where the liberals feel like they can play and they can win, right? And if you look historically in at Canadian elections, we've only had really five conservative prime ministers. Actually, this is let's do a bit of trivia here. If you can, I want someone. If you get a shout out, if you can list the five uh, conservative stroke progressive conservative prime ministers Canada has had. Get in the comments. You can just put one at a time in the comments here. I want someone to give me the names of all the conservative or progressive prime ministers that we've had. Trivial question. Let's go. All right. And if each one I tell you, you can't name that one next. Anyways, so the question is now the Liberal Party is effectively leaving those progressive voters behind, right? Those people who want to see, you know, full court press on climate change. Those people who want to hop, of course, that was the low hanging fruit. That was the low hanging fruit. Um, Harper, of course, is our only conservative, like true conservative prime minister. Kim Campbell. Kim Campbell. Okay, so who are the other ones? Who are the other ones? No Google, guys. Yes, Mulroney was conservative, progressive conservative as well. Yes. Who else? I now I'm not gonna lie. One of the names is actually low key evading me right now. So I want to see who reminds me of the name. I remember seeing it right before the show, but I don't know if I remember. Another numbers. Welcome back to the show, by the way. Joe Clark. Was it Joe Clark? I think Joe Clark was progressive conservative. I'm the only one allowed to Google this. Okay, you guys. I'm the only one allowed to Google this. Was Joe Clark a progressive conservative? Uh, let's see. Somebody Google that and tell me. Anyways, so I think the last one would have been maybe Lester B. Pearson. I think Pearson was the last one. Was Pearson liberal? You know what? I don't know. I just asked because I thought it was a good trivia question, and then I realized I'm terrible at trivia. But let's get back to the topic here, okay, guys? Let's get back to the topic. So, the liberals are effectively leaving their progressive wing behind, and you've seen these divisions within the Liberal Party at the moment, right? We see this. We've seen this with Stephen Guilbeault leaving. um, we've seen this with Stephen Guilbeault leaving cabinet, and we know that there's now apparently an environmental caucus formed under the current Liberal Party. That is pointing to the divisions that currently exist within the Liberal Party. Okay, so that now the longer McCartney continues in the direction he seems to be pursuing at the moment, there is a chance that we might see a splinter cell within the Liberal Party. At some point, the longer McCartney continues to ignore those more progressive aspects, to be fair, it's refreshing to me. I like that McCartney is not fighting over some of these more fringe issues right now, because I shared this with you guys last week. The most important thing to people right now in Canada, especially young people like me and probably all of you in the comments, the most important thing to us right now at the moment is jobs and the economy. Those are the most important things to people right now. People are not necessarily. I mean, sure, we want to see action on the environment, but we got to eat first, right? That's this kind of that seems to be the position. That seems to be the position that most Canadians are at this moment. Even people that would usually be against things like pipelines are certainly a bit more open than they used to be. Apparently, there was this poll I saw in Quebec that more than 50% of the people polled in Quebec actually want to see a pipeline, which is crazy when you think about it, because Quebec is known as the hub of famously anti-pipeline people. You know, Forbes Club says, "I would love for Canada to move towards a Canada first and not party first." Yes. Okay. So, which that brings me back to our topic. And that's a good segue there. So if the Liberals continue to be the center right party that I see them as currently under McCartney, well, that opens up a progressive flank that is an opportunity for the NDP if they ever get serious about these things, right? That is an opportunity for the NDP. Now, the problem the NDP has is that even if they try right now to cater to some of these more progressive, social justice issues, those kinds of things, they will just get drowned out. In fact, I think if they try and be a bit too progressive right now, it will be negative for the NDP because, as I said, that's not where the discussion is. That's not what matters to people right now. Which is why, if you followed the show, I said I would like to see Rob Ashton, who happens to be a former Labour leader, and I think I would like to see Rob Ashton become the leader of the NDP because that kind of leadership meets the moment. It meets this is where Canada is at right now, and it returns the NDP back to their pro-worker roots, which I think will benefit them going forward. Right? That's my opinion on that. But I can almost see this from like a mile away. That it's in the end, it will be unfortunate if the NDP falls into the trap of trying to represent fringe ideals that are not top of mind in the national discourse at the moment. But the problem for the Conservative Party, is once as the Liberals continue to move further and further right, they are squeezing out the Conservative Party. That and here's why that is a problem. Canada doesn't necessarily have room for two conservative parties. It just doesn't. I mean, historically, we used to have the progressive conservatives. They did well in the 90s, and was it in the 90s, in the 80s certainly, with Mulroney. They did well, right? And then with the emergence of the Conservative Party, you saw the progressive conservatives effectively go away. Yeah. So there is no room for two conservative parties. The problem the Conservative Party of Canada, led by Pierre Poilievre, has right now is that given the choice between a red Tory and a blue Tory, a progressive conservative as depicted by McCartney and a progressive conservative as depicted by Pierre Poilievre, people seem to choose a progressive conservative led by McCartney. So that represents a bit of an existential crisis, I think, for the Conservative Party of Canada. And that might be the ultimate gambit that the Carney Liberals are getting at here. Knowing that on some of these fringe issues that maybe the NDP might run, the NDP is never going to maybe win enough votes to form government. Maybe they see that if they can squeeze the Conservative Party of Canada out, that is their gateway to ruling this country a bit longer than you would than a lot of people might like. Anyways, so I want to talk about the consequences for the Liberal Party. The consequence of them shifting in the direction that they have shifted now is that, as I said, they open up that progressive wing. Now, their calculation seems to be that, well, they can afford they can afford to lose some of that for some of the moderate votes that they will gain, for some of those conservative votes that they are picking up daily these days, right? Now, the question is, and this is a question for you guys. I want to see who the students of history are here. What do you think is the overarching identity of the Liberal Party of Canada? Because I really only I started thinking about it, and I realized that people seem to think that the Liberal Party of Canada is is the Justin Trudeau version of the Liberal Party and nothing else. And I realized that couldn't be further from the truth. And this was just a realization that just hit me. The fundamental identity of the Liberal Party, and this is what I've distilled it down to. The fundamental identity of the Liberal Party of Canada is based off of social liberalism, essentially. On the one hand, that is one part of what the Liberal Party of Canada stands for. They're the party that gave us the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? That was still the Liberal Party, believe it or not. But also, under Jean Chrétien and under Paul Martin, the Liberal Party was also the party of sometimes fiscal conservatism, sometimes under Justin Trudeau, fiscal wastefulness, right? It's still the same. It's still the same Liberal Party of Canada. So fundamentally, the building block of the Liberal Party, as I have distilled it down, is social liberalism, but also I think their economic platform sort of changes from, depending on the times, from a bit more liberal spending as they did under Justin Trudeau to a bit more conservative spending ideas as they had under Jean Chrétien, right? So that was kind of an interesting journey that I went through when I was trying to think about, is this idea of Carney moving the liberals away from their further left position that they were with Justin Trudeau, is this going to be negative for the Liberal Party? Right? That is the question. That is the fundamental question. And I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is as I don't know that this is as negative as it could be for the Carney liberals. Okay. Fox Club says, to me, the Liberal Party is like Tim Hortons today. What does that mean? I feel like there's a meaning I'm missing there. What do you mean? Help me out there, Fox Club. So, speaking of consequences, oh, the Conservative Party feels like Tim's in the 80s and 90s. Okay, so let's see if my interpretation of what you're saying is correct. The Tims of the 80s and 90s was very Canadian in their identity. Oh, that flew right over my head, Fox Club. I can't say I know what you meant there. I'm sorry. Yeah, the conservative the Tims of the 80s and 90s was very Canadian. They had the Canadian sort of identity, and obviously, I don't think Tim Hortons is currently owned by has Canadian owners these days. Um, anyways, so will there be consequences? And this is the other place I want to go with this. Will there be consequences for the floor crossers? That is also an important place to go with this discussion. Michael Marr, MP for Markham Unionville, across the floor. Tristan Tremont, MP for Acadie Annapolis, across the floor as well. will there be consequences for these candidates and indeed for the entire Liberal Party going into whenever we have an election? Well, I was thinking about that, so I went and looked at the voting history of actually. Before we go into that, I want to share something with you guys. Actually, let's do that first. Let's do that first. Let's see if you guys can see what I'm trying to share here. I want to talk about these floor crosses and how people have sort of taken this in their writings. That's a good place to transition this discussion to. I just want to make sure you guys you guys tell me if you can hear this. Once I'm going to start playing this now. Global News did a thing where they went and spoke to people in Markham Unionville in Michael Mars' riding to see how they feel about their MP crossing the floor. And I know people have different opinions about this. Some people say if an MP is going to cross the floor, then there should be a by-election and they shouldn't be allowed to just cross the floor like that because people effectively voted for in this case a conservative government, and now the person they voted for has essentially switched affiliations to a different party without the consent of the people. So you guys let me know if you can hear this. Okay, so just to make sure you guys heard that all right, yeah, because sometimes this thing just doesn't work as it should. Did you guys hear that all right? Somebody let me know. Let me know in the comments there if you heard that all right. Anyways, um, so I play that because obviously, the people of Markham Unionville, the people that were polled in that particular piece by Global News said they felt betrayed that that Michael Marr decided to move. And this I want to point to this for people, and it has occurred to or it occurs to me that people are not necessarily informed when they go and vote. First of all, ideally in this country, we're actually voting for the MPs, not the party. But clearly people vote. It's the other way around for people. People are voting for the party and not the MP. And so right now, the people are getting a little bit hurt by the fact that the party they voted for no longer has the seats they wanted that party to have. Now, should MPs be able to cross the floor? Uh, Yeah, so Fox Club says we vote for them to make decisions in our best interest. If they believe in crossing the floor, if they believe crossing the floor is what is best for Canada, then that's what we voted for. And and the fundamental bit of this for me, I think I don't have a problem with MPs crossing the floor because here's the thing: sooner or later they're going to face the electorate, and the electorate will get a referendum, if you like, on whether they agree with such a person crossing the floor or not. Now, historically, crossing the floor doesn't bode well for the political future of the people that do cross the floor. Yeah. But here's the thing: I think that MPs should be allowed to cross the floor, but also, they're not shielded from the consequences of crossing the floor, right? They will face an election. And usually, as I said, typically means the end of their political career sooner rather than later. Now, I bring this up because one of the people in that particular little snippet from Global News that I played you was saying, "Oh, 27,000 people voted for their riding to be for that riding to be a conservative riding." Yeah, true. But to say that Michael Marr doesn't represent the people because, 27,000 people, which represents actually in Markham Unionville, I'm looking at the election results now, 27,000 people represents 50% of the votes. That's the share of the votes that Michael Marr got to win the election in Markham Unionville. His opponent got 47%. Now, the fact that those votes are so close does mean that there's not an insignificant amount of liberal support in that riding. In fact, that riding is not a liberal stronghold, is not a conservative stronghold at all. In fact, you might remember the name Paul Chiang. Paul Chiang was the MP in that riding before Michael Marr. And he was meant to contest for Carney in that riding up until he said something dumb. He said that his opponent, who was running for the Conservative Party, should be handed over to the Communist Party or something like that, to the Chinese Communist Party, because I guess there's a lot of Chinese influence in that riding or something. And he made the very dumb statement where he said, his opponent should be handed over to the Chinese Communist Party. And in this country, you don't make such statements, right? And so he stepped down, and that paved the way for Michael Marr to become the MP of that particular riding, because he beat the liberal candidate. Now, when you look at the voting history of that riding, of Michael Marr's riding, you see that what you'll see, and this is just on Wikipedia, by the way, you guys can go look at this information yourselves. When you look at that, you'll see that the riding has kind of flipped over the years between liberal and conservative. So some people have been saying, oh, they expect Mark Carney to they expect Michael Marr to pay the price of crossing the floor, and maybe he will, but that is not a foregone conclusion in that writing. That is not a foregone conclusion at all. In fact, that writing has kind of flipped really between the liberals and the conservatives over the years. That is one thing I wanted to point to for people, because I think a lot of people are okay. So Fox Club said there should be a town hall for him to explain why he is crossing the floor. There should be. There should be. You know what? At the very least, I think a person crossing the floor owes that to the people. Now, there is obviously the danger that in trying to organize a town hall, the people that show up to said town hall will be the most emotional people who have opinions against your decision, right? And this happens to me all the time, where I try to be a moderate on this channel. I try to be neutral on things, but every time you get the angriest people on both sides of the aisle, right? You get the people that are the most emotional about certain topics, and they're the ones that show up to have these discussions. So while I agree that there should be a town hall, maybe they should do it online or something, because last thing you want is to have a town hall and someone shows up and it becomes a whole shouting thing. Anyways, um, so that is effectively that is what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I think we have fallen into the trap of assuming that the Liberal Party is this, left party, and has always been that kind of party. And I think the identity of the Liberal Party has kind of been diluted by 10 years of Justin Trudeau. By my conclusion, now if Melissa Landsman crosses the floor, that would be absolutely diabolical. I can't see it, but that would be crazy. What actually I want to see, where does Melissa Lampman represents which riding, which province is she from? I want to see which province she's from. I want to see if that might provide some evidence, some. She represents Thornhill. Thornhill. Okay. It's not. I can't say. I can't say. I mean, before now, I was looking at some of these MPs that have crossed the floor. To be honest, when I was looking at people that might cross the floor. I was thinking people in like Nova Scotia, some of those more red provinces. Obviously, Christian Tremont was from Acadie, Annapolis, which that province tends to vote liberal most of the time. So I was looking at people from like those kinds of areas, those Atlantic provinces, looking at maybe Quebec, maybe Ontario. And then, I can't say I expected I mean Michael Marr to just like cross, It was less likely it would happen there, but it did. And imagine if they had gotten my John Rue to go. That would have been an epic flex by the Liberals on the Conservatives. But ultimately, I think Matt John Rue weighed the consequences of crossing and decided it wasn't worth the price, essentially. But it is what it is. So I don't. If Melissa Lampman were to cross to the Liberal, I think that would be a coup. That would be a coup and some. I think that would certainly be the end of Pierre Poilievre if he's not done already. I think he's done, but obviously my conservative friends have not arrived at that conclusion just yet. Anyways, we're at the end of the show now. If you guys have something else you want to talk about, pop it in the chat real quick. And I'm gonna look to round up now. It's been a good talk. Chatting with you guys. Um, as I said to Mark Anderson earlier, these live shows are really meant for you guys. They're meant to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever is pressing, whatever discussions in terms of what's going on in our politics you guys want to talk about. We get into that. So that is what these live shows are for. So if you see me going off topic, talking about some other things, it's purely meant to be driven by you guys. Okay, that's what the show is meant. I usually will provide like an overarching theme for the show, but you guys ultimately drive what we talk about on the show. Now, what can you look what okay, could Carney be building a half and half party to lead Canada? Well, but that's essentially what I'm saying with the fact that I think the liberal identity has been lost over time. The Liberal Party is traditionally a centrist party, believe it or not. I think that people, because of the Justin Trudeau years, have assumed that the Liberal Party is a left party, is a leftist party. They're not. Which is why I try to explain to you guys that the fundamental identity, the core identity of the Liberal Party starts from a position of social liberalism. And then over the decades that the Liberal Party has been, they've kind of switched between fiscal conservatism and fiscal, you know, let me just put it like that. Conservatism and fiscal Trudeau. Let's put it like that. So yes, Mark Carney is essentially returning the Liberal Party to its centrist route, to its centrist roots, right? So a lot of people think McCartney is doing something super out of the ordinary for the Liberal Party. It actually isn't. It's not. It's not that far from the old style pre-Trudeau Liberal Party. This particular iteration of the Liberal Party, actually. Yeah. So what else do you guys have to look forward to before the year is over? In politics with regards to the channel, I last year I did something called reckless predictions. And what are my reckless predictions? Reckless predictions is kind of a thing I do at the beginning of every year where I go over, like, in my head what I expect to happen in the next year. Um, what I expect to happen, like, I did one for the United States last year. I did one as well for Canada. One of my reckless predictions was that I said that Alberta would be the 51st state. No, that was kind of a cheeky one. That was kind of a cheeky prediction at the time. But I did say that Alberta would be the 51st state. That was around the time when Danielle Smith was moving a little crazy, and she would like go off to Mar-a-Lago and go off to Washington all the time. And I was like, maybe Alberta will be the 51st state. So these reckless predictions are meant to just be, use your imagination. Obviously, it helps if it's close to reality. I had other predictions that were closer to things that could happen as well. So next Sunday we're gonna do, maybe next Sunday let's do a debrief so you know what my reckless predictions tend to be, and then by the end of the year I will put two videos out, one on the United States and one on Canada, where I make my reckless predictions for 2026, things I expect to happen in 2026. So you guys start to think about what your reckless predictions for 2026 are going to be, and we'll talk about that next weekend. So I got to roll the credits now. Fox Club, thank you for joining the show today. Northern Numbers, thank you for joining the show briefly. And I know you haven't been with us for a while, Northern Numbers. Thank you for coming back. Lee Beast, thank you for joining the show. Maple Boy, thank you for joining the show. Mark Anderson, I wish you had put more into the conversation as against blaming the agenda. I wish you had kind of told us, maybe responded to something that helps a bit more the conversation, like answer the question I asked. It always helps. I feel better when you guys kind of like give your opinions about topics. It helps me kind of push the show. But as against me just ranting on for like an hour because I can't. but it helps. This shows are meant for you guys to put your opinions in the comments. Okay. So sorry if it felt like I was ranting off topic. The idea again is for you guys to get in the comments and drive the discussion. Thank you, Lebis, for also joining the show today. Um, you did criticize McCartney to no end. That's okay. That's okay. It's allowed here. Thank you, Abby, for joining. You were not as chatty as you normally are today. Um, who else? I hope I have everybody. I think I have everybody. So you guys have an amazing week. Have an amazing week. If something incredible happens, if something interesting happens, I'll obviously be back live after work one of these days with you guys if something happens. But other than that, I'll see you guys next Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. If you're new around here, please subscribe. I'll see you next time. Take care, you guys.